Whispers Estate definitely has its own personality, I can tell you that.
We think that there's something inside the house or that the house itself is alive.
It's eye-opening.
There's not a word to describe that feeling.
As we're setting up everything, I see a little girl, full body. As I looked up, gone.
The house is alive. It knows who it wants in this house and who it doesn't.
Whispers Estate is the name that was given to the house because of the paranormal activity that guests encountered. Whispering in the ear, kissing noises, things like that. It then grew to more prominent activity. You could be in the front parlor, you could call out to Dr. John and you could get a response from him, or you could call up to the second floor and you would hear Rachel sing or giggle or skip across the floor.
Can you hear it?
The earliest record we have of the house is 1894, and those are based on the Sandsborn fire maps of that time. 1899-1901 is when Dr. John and Jesse Gibbons bought the house from Dr. George and Sarah White. There was a remortgage on the house, and we believe that was what they used for preparing the doctor's office on the east side of the house, on the 2 rooms on the first floor. December 15th, 1910 is the first advertisement in the Mitchell commercial newspaper advertising Dr. John's medical practice. The only photo we have of Dr. John is from a 1916 yearbook from the Mitchell High School, stating that all calls are answered day or night. Dr. John had his medical practice in the house for approximately 27 years before he was forced into retirement. Prior to that time, at the end of May 1934, is when his wife, Jessie Gibbons, passed away after a bout with double pneumonia. Three years after his wife's passing, there was an insanity inquest initiated against Dr. John that he was a danger to himself and to others. 4 days after the insanity inquest was initiated, it was concluded stating that Dr. John was not insane, did not need hospitalization.
In later years, he became a little bit senile, and I think his license was revoked for a little while, and then he got the license back, and I think his brother at one point had to have him committed.
Can you tell us some history of Dr. John?
Some of the history of Dr. John that we have suggests that he's a good, benevolent individual, beyond reproach. However, some of those articles were also written by Dr. John himself. So it's kind of a biased viewpoint. There's been a number of secondhand accounts we've heard from people that he was a bad doctor. Some of the people who've lived in the senior home here in town mentioned that he would never mention both Dr. John and his brother, Dr. George, in the same sentence or in the same conversation for that matter. The woman who sold the house to me, she mentioned that she was always told when she was a kid to stay away from the bad doctor's house. So when she had to walk to and from school towards the end of the doctor's medical career here, that she was told to cross the street, pass the house, and then cross back over. just as she would be in front of the house.
Why was that?
We haven't gotten any concrete details. However, the legend and lore states is that Dr. John, while that he was a womanizer, took liberties with female patients, things like that.
There's a number of comments in the insanity inquest that he had lost feeling in one of his hands, that he would carry a gun around town, he had threatened to kill people, walked around town in his pajamas. During the insanity inquest, the AMA came in, confiscated all of his medical records, his equipment, and forced him into retirement.
Various people lived in the house over the years. It's been an apartment building, it's been in private residences over the years. So many people have lived at that home.
From 2000 to 2004, the house was vacant, at which time it was bought by the previous owner. But when he started doing renovations, a lot of paranormal activity started to occur. Whispers in the ear, knocking, footsteps, rapping on wood, things like that. We've had people scratched. We've had candles fly across rooms. We've had beds shake uncontrollably. Doors have slammed open and shut. You can hear children giggle and play, skipping across the floors. Doorknobs have shaken vigorously from 3 to 5 seconds and then stopped.
I've had experiences in Dr. John's room with being scratched on the back of my neck. I have heard my name being called in the middle of the night. I have slept in the front parlor and had the chandelier smacked violently.
September 26, 2011, and I had been broken for a night and a half because a little girl had gotten scratched on the second floor underneath the stairs going to the third floor. So a night and a half of provoking. When the last guest had left, I had sent all the volunteers home, and there was a thunderous explosion in the house. I mean, the whole house shook. It was no backfire of a car. It was no gun fired half a block away or anything like that. I mean, the whole house shook, and that's when I sat up like, holy shit, I'm in the house by myself. I heard 4 or 5 thunderous footsteps, and when it got done, it was right over on the second floor where I was sitting. And then I was like, okay, it didn't happen, it's just your imagination. And then from behind me, 2 rooms back, I heard the same explosion, and then I started hearing things getting knocked over. And then 3 or 4 footsteps coming forward, and when that stopped, it was right around the corner from where I was at. I'm like, screw this, I got my keys in my bag, and I was out the door.
What was knocked over?
Nothing. That's the amazing thing. It sounded like medical instruments and the trays that surgeons or doctors or nurses might have set up to do an operation or something, but nothing that I heard was in the house.
After we decided we would come here, we wound up on the front porch looking in. We were waiting for the other group that was currently in here to leave. As we looked in, we could just see this ominous shadow, very large, waiting inside the dining room. And when we got to the parlor, we heard what sounded like footsteps coming from the basement, one by one, very methodically. All the lights were on, nothing obstructing our view. However, slowly it started to get darker and darker as we're just looking down here, almost as there's a shadow moving towards us. And as it started to come closer to us, all the sound dropped out of the room. As that shadow started moving progressively forward, the energy of the room, it just turned electrifying. All the hair on our arms started standing up. You could just feel this energy pulsating. Slowly, this thing rushed towards us, and we heard, just this giant gust of wind just rushing at us. And at that point, we ran out.
Some staff and I were here cleaning, and we decided, I think we're really tired. We need a little bit of a nap, so we thought we'd take a little nap in between. And I was asleep. The other staff were over here talking, and I could hear them talking. And in the dream, I could see the blanket that was on top of me, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. All of a sudden, it's like something was pulling the blanket down, and it's almost like I could see, like when you pull a blanket, and you can see the weave in the blanket kind of pull apart. It's like I could see that, and then that feeling of pins and needles when your arm falls asleep when you lay on it funny. It's how I felt all over. And then I was trying to holler out to Gwen and Sandra over here, help me, and I couldn't say anything. And then for some reason it let go, and I thought, okay, I'm good. And then a short time later it started pulling down again. This time I couldn't catch my breath at all, and I was trying to call out to them again. The next thing I remember was hearing Gwen holler, "Becky, are you okay?" And I jolted awake. And I just remember, gasping for air. And I had mentioned to them, I said, were you guys sitting over here chatting? And they said, no, we were asleep. What woke us up was hearing you, sounding like you were, gasping for air over there.
The last time I was at Whispers Estate, there were ominous footsteps walking around. They didn't seem natural. They were really heavy, very awkward. They sounded a bit disconcerting, actually. You could hear disembodied voices, although you weren't exactly sure where they were coming from. Oh, wow.
What?
Holy shit. What? I heard a little girl respond to that when you said that. Like, she sounded very sad, like, or something. The team had actually captured a picture of some black shadow, mass, dark matter standing in front of me and the lens that clouded up the photo.
The house really likes to, I think, pick and choose who it wants to talk to. I'm part of a radio show called Shadows on the Wall, Paranormal Radio. I was able to go down to Whispers Estate for a network retreat through RFN Media during a live episode of Shadows on the Wall.
Welcome back, Shadow People. We've had something happen.
I'll take a picture, or JC can take a picture and put it up on the Shadows on the Wall page.
In the opposite room, I saw plain as day.
When you look at this picture, you'll see this chair. It's just a dining room chair, nothing fancy. And as we were setting up everything, I see a little girl, full body.
I saw a white dress, long dark hair. She did not look at anybody, and she was just kicking her legs, like she was just waiting.
And then as I looked up, gone.
I have actually encountered slithering things, goat face things, scratches, growls, things like that on the second floor.
We had a young lady actually come into this closet behind me where it's been reported to see. And she decided she wanted to go in there all by herself. She did not want anybody in there. She didn't want a flashlight. She didn't want nothing. It took us 5 minutes and she came crying, busting on the door, wanting out. Something had grabbed her from the top of her spine, and she said it felt like 3 fingers, sharp fingers, cold but hot, moving from the base of her spine down to her lower back.
Sorry, buddy. You want to go in?
He didn't really like it in here before.
There's a difference between when you're sitting in a room and you hear the heavy footsteps going down the hall and then a pound on the door. That's not the positive experience, but the quick footsteps sounds like little kids running down the hallway. Or, like when a kid will come up and like hug your arm or hug your leg, something like that. I've had a couple of those experiences.
There's something going on upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Something moving.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming down these steps, and my niece was in front of us when we were walking down the steps. And as we were traveling, we were being very careful because they're very steep. We were hanging on. And Casey was in front of my niece, and Casey had gone out the door. And my niece was in front of me, and I was approximately probably right beside this window. And literally, the next thing I know, somehow, some way, I literally fell, don't know, and my face ended up in the hallway where my face almost literally hit the door, and I didn't even touch my niece in front of me.
I was already walking out and I heard her fall, and I thought, oh my gosh, like, did you trip? Are you hurt? And Addison was in front of her, and she goes, she just flew over me. I don't know what happened. I don't know if she tripped or what. But I thought that's almost nearly impossible unless you were to jump and fall from going from here to your head almost hitting the door jam.
I was probably the first of many, but the biggest defining moment of the spiritual side of things in this home for us.
We always see things like run, pass, crawl, what they like to call the rake. We see that all the time, but it's obviously it's hard to capture. It's like the really only way you can explain it is like a disfigured cat, but it has like real long arms and real short legs. Like its arms are what pulls it. Like it's definitely not an animal. That's all you can say. And as soon as you see it, you don't see it.
There was 3 of us, and we were doing table tipping in the nursery. The table pulled us out, and as we were coming down the hallway, at the end of the hallway in the servants' quarters, you could see this human shape, but it had a goat face to it. The horns went up and over its head, and it was just standing there at the end of the hallway. It was like the table was pulling us towards it.
One of the most interesting things that we had happen here was on our first trip, we was up in Rachel's bedroom, and me and 2 of the other investigators, I'm gonna call them house investigators, was walking down the hallway, and we seen a silhouette of a little girl in white coming down at us. And that pretty much made me think, hey, there's something here. But I guess the best thing is we set up a camera right outside of Jesse's door, and we actually shot the footage of that door. You can hear the doorknob turn and see the door open.
I was here approximately 2 years ago, and they was doing a tour, and we was going up the stairs into the servants' quarters and made our way to Rachel's room, and then going to the 3rd floor. And as I was walking into the nursery, I heard a ball being hit in Rachel's room, so I turned around. There was a couple people behind me, and I turned around and walked back out the door, and as I did, I looked to the right, and I've seen a full apparition go from the bathroom through the door to the servants' quarters. It actually took my breath. I couldn't talk. I had to wait a few minutes to catch my breath.
The table tipping session was very intense. I never really believed in table tipping until this time. I always thought that somehow, some way, somebody's manipulating the table tipping. When we were there were 4 or 5 of us at the table, and we all had our fingers on the table. And as we were, as we had our fingers lightly touching the table, questions were being asked. And suddenly the table started to sway a little bit. And then it started to gain momentum, and it was faster and faster and faster and faster. And as I was holding on to the table, as my fingers were touching the table, I could tell that nobody else at the table was doing any pressure at all on the table to manipulate it. We took video of it, and the video underneath the table shows there's no feet moving it. I know there's no wires because we checked it beforehand. We checked to make sure that there was no outside manipulation of it. But the table had a mind of its own, a will of its own. It went where it wanted to. It did not go where we wished it to go, but the table went where it desired to go.
Stop.
During the session, the table tipped towards my partner, JC Rositas, and pinned him on his chair. It got to the point where JC couldn't even move his chair backwards. Something was holding that chair in place.
Do you want him to stop?
To take us down the hallway, yeah.
Can you get out, JC?
I'm stuck.
Can you back up the table so JC can get up?
Afterwards, he said he thought it might be the lip of some wainscoting on the ground that might be holding him back. But we went over there to look at it, and there was nothing. The chair should have been able to move. It should have been able to slide, but JC was not able to make it slide at all. He was trapped because of this table.
I could not move the chair as this table was coming in at me. There's nothing there blocking those feet that should have kept that. I mean, I should have been able to keep going, but I couldn't.
This room is reportedly the heart of the house. The same 2 psychics that we had that mentioned things about Rachel's room and her passing, they said that this room is the heart of the house, that the room reeks of death and rebirth. Well, the psychics also mentioned that over here in this corner is a vortex or a portal, if you will. It goes along the ground to the left side of the church, 2 houses away, goes along the crawl space, comes up in the front parlor, comes up into this room here. And we've got video a number of times of specific self-emitting points of light, orbs, if you will, that will shoot across and go through the wall or through the doorway.
On the corner of the room, and actually even outside of the house, 15 to 20 feet, believe it or not. And then it goes down.
Just where the house sits, or
right.
Wow.
And it actually goes straight.
We was going up to the 3rd floor, and I think there was 8 or 9 of us, and this was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I could tell something was going to go on, and it was a growl, and we got pushed. There was a presence in there, and I'm gonna say like the walls was heaving. Get the hell out of the house, and we left. We come out here, and the lady we had a dead battery in one of the car, and one of the lady's tires was flat. But the house investigators, they got the hell out with us. And that one guy said he's never coming back. Doors were slamming upstairs, and you had, it just sounded like people marching.
I've had a number of paranormal experiences in the house. Most of them have been really nice and pretty cool. When you ask for the door to open up or you ask for the toy to turn on, and it does, it's within a certain level of expectation, and you can accept it. I have had a couple of experiences in the house that have basically been my oh shit moments. Those moments have usually occurred when I've least expected it. And more to the point, when I've gotten a little bit cocky and conceited with, I think I know how everything's going on in the house. You know, I know that they won't mess with me when I'm in this room, or that they won't mess with me when I'm over here, or as long as I don't do this, I'm fine, you know, but I can do all this other stuff. And they put me in my place a couple times. The first time I got cocky with going down a set of stairs that a number of people have reported being pushed on. Now, luckily, nobody has been hurt up until this night, and this was the night of July 23rd, 2010. It was about 3:15 in the morning, the next morning, so it was July 24th. And I got a little too cocky and thinking that I was above an ass whipping, and all of a sudden I felt a cool breeze behind me. And this is in an attic that has basically no ventilation to the point where the windows up there are sealed. There's no cool breeze. I mean, it's in the middle of summer. So I felt a cool breeze. Next thing I know, I was flying down the stairs. I got 8 stitches over my right eyebrow. The doctor said that I was lucky I didn't crush my eye socket and that I didn't lose consciousness. And because of that, I have an immense fear of being in the house by myself at night.
I think the one that stands out the most is the one in the attic where I had just laid back on the bed. I was not asleep, and all of a sudden I was unable to move. I saw 2 full entities, a male to my right, a female at my feet. I attempted to scream because I knew something was just, I don't want to say evil, but I knew something was about ready to occur. And I tried to scream and I couldn't make a sound. I could hear myself screaming though in my head, but I couldn't hear myself. And then the next thing I know, it felt like claws were on my back and pulling me downward and spinning at the same time. And I could see the bed up above me in the room as I was getting pulled down. And I knew that wherever the place was that I was being pulled to was not a good place to be. In fact, I knew that it would change me forever. So I had to fight to get back, and thank goodness I did.
So we came over to the house and we helped clean out the basement. When we came through, our group met here. There was probably a group of 6 or 7 of us. I can't quite remember. It's been a few years ago. Well, we came up to the 2nd floor. We were actually around Rachel's room and Jesse's room. And we heard a man talking downstairs. Everyone in our group was here with us. So what we ended up doing was going downstairs to see if somebody else had come to join us. As we went downstairs, there was no one to be found. But we did start hearing a voice from the 2nd floor where we had just been. As we came upstairs, once again, there was nobody there. So as we started walking through the 2nd floor, just making sure no one was hiding, we heard a voice upstairs in the attic. And there's only one entrance and exit out of the attic. So we figured we have this person. We'll see who it is. We get up there, nobody's there.
When I heard and then saw the bed, because everybody clicked on their flashlights and the bed just came up and slammed down, it just, I don't know if it felt like I had an outer body experience or what, but it like felt like it took over or whatever, and I just started shaking and screaming and crying, cussing, and I just had to get out of that room.
Are there good versions of what you are as an entity?
Holy My feelings was immediately scared. And what scared me more was the bed coming down, levitating, and just, it was unbelievable. And after that happened, I seen a small shadow of something that was like running through the hallways, or running out of the room.
Well, I've heard voices, and in that room you can tell it was bad entity. When I was on the 3rd floor, it was scary, a scary, weird feeling I had, and in the room, it was like something was in there with us.
When my son was asking it, are there multiple people here? Are there multiple entities? Something took their hand and cupped my shoulder and ran it down my back. But I think it was, with the question that was asked and what had happened, it seemed like it was telling us that there were multiple things there, because that one touched me at the same time something happened to my son, and that was when the bed went at him.
I have not felt comfortable in that room. There's a lot of experiences that happen in that room with everybody. But in terms of locations in the house, that is probably the only place where I don't feel at ease. You slowly become desensitized to certain things while working in this field for a long time. And I myself have become desensitized to a lot, but nothing changes the fact that when you go into that attic loft area, no preparation or experience could properly prepare you, and nothing could desensitize you from that.
It showed itself to me from an action on the 3rd floor attic. I was up there with 3 other team members from Heartland Hauntings. We were just sitting in the room, and I was leaving because I was getting warm. It was 90 degrees in there with no circulation. So I was like, all right, I'm about to leave. I get violently hit in the center of my chest. It hurt really bad. I can still, to this day, remember how that felt, and it really did scare me.
I think so, yeah.
Well, the story with Rachel, there's actually 2 stories. The first story that I heard was that Rachel was in the front stairs parlor. She had the pocket door shut, and she was sneaking a peek at Christmas gifts on or around Christmas Day 1912. Somebody was about to go ahead and find her there, doing something she wasn't supposed to do. So in an attempt to hide, she crouched down next to the Christmas tree. And in those days, they had the candles lit on the Christmas tree to light it up. So the story goes is that she got too close to the open flame, knocked it over, caught her dress on fire, and most of the front room went up in flames before the fire was extinguished. So the evidence that I found within the first few visits is that it didn't support the story. One of the pieces of evidence that didn't seem to fit the story was that the pocket door was only burnt on the edge, which suggests that the pocket door was open during the fire and not closed as I was originally told. So shortly after buying the house, I had 2 psychics come in, and they pretty much both said the same thing, a little bit different wording, but it was both basically the same thing, that Rachel had gone into Dr. John's room, snuck out what they believe was a vial of ether, brought it into the front parlor, opened it up, not knowing what would occur, and she rendered herself unconscious. When she went unconscious, she fell over, knocked over the flame, a candle that was in the room, and that started the fire. And that story more accurately supports the evidence at hand.
All the dolls that's around me on Rachel's bed and stuff have been donated to Rachel. Rachel actually has favorite dolls. We'll ask Rachel to set the dolls off. You'll hear the dolls giggle. Some of them make different sounds. One of them, her favorite, makes like 5 different sounds. Rachel's very close to my heart. I'll ask her questions. She sets the dolls off. I'll come up. I'll tell her good night. Where you've hurt her in your ear, as well as other people, say night night.
I love to play bouncy ball down the hallway. We bounce the ball into Rachel's room, and sometimes we get these balls coming back to us, or it has stopped, and then you'll see the balls start rolling around on the floor.
What was that?
Sounded like a ball.
Yeah, it sounded like a ball bouncing.
Because I leaned against it, so I just leaned it up and it didn't.
No, I heard it's like a ball bouncing.
The story goes is that after Rachel was in the fire in the front parlor, that she was brought up here into this room. She laid in bed in this room here, not the same bed that's here now. But she passed away after 2 days of languishing up here. Now, we originally thought that Rachel passed away due to the severity of her burns. However, we had 2 psychics in the house over the course of about 4 or 5 months that said pretty much the same thing, that Dr. John gave her increasing dosages of morphine. Now, we thought that that was because of the pain that she was in, that Dr. John was helping her ease the pain. But the psychic said that Dr. John and Jesse felt that she was no longer the prized child, that she was now damaged goods.
No one hear that knock?
No, I have pressure on my upper back.
Rachel, is that you?
We've had some people in this room in an investigation, they can actually see movement on the bed as if a hand is pushing back and forth on the mattress. We've also had times where people have said they've seen something as if somebody or something is sitting down on the bed. Some of the other things that happen in this room, the beach balls get knocked off. Now normally getting knocked off would be just rolling over due to physics not being balanced. But there's been times where the beach balls have been knocked off, leaning 3 or 4 feet away. There's a doll over in the dresser in a case. A woman by the name of Nancy brought the doll here in, I believe, mid-2006. It wasn't brand new, but it wasn't burnt. It was still in fairly good condition. She brought it up, she placed it on the bed. They went downstairs. They tried to communicate with Rachel throughout the night. Nothing would happen. They couldn't get any communication, no sounds, nothing. She decided to leave the house about 3 a.m. She came back upstairs to say goodnight to Rachel. The doll was missing. Nobody could find it. They searched for about 30 minutes, could not find the doll. Nancy left. She came back about 3 months later, came back upstairs to say hi to Rachel. The doll was not here. The owner at the time, he confirmed this as well, and he said that they had not seen the doll for 3 months. They were downstairs during an investigation trying to get some results, some activity. They started hearing some commotion upstairs, and Nancy asked Rachel about the doll she had left her on the last visit. A few moments later, that doll was thrown down the stairs. It wasn't hot to the touch or anything like that, but it did smell freshly burned.
For me, a lot of the experiences that I've had in this house have been generally, I wouldn't say negative, but I wouldn't necessarily say positive either. Almost a nice blend of it. I've seen individuals scratched, people pushed, people not becoming themselves. However, I've seen the good interactions with Rachel. Rachel's a prime example. That's one of the safest rooms I feel we have in the house. Everything is very nice. Typically when Rachel interacts with us, it's a very calming nature, almost as a little girl's playing with you. When I give my tours, I always say when Rachel likes to play with her giggle doll, there's nothing cuter than a baby giggling. But when it's 3 in the morning and you're the only person in the house, it's the most terrifying thing in the world.
My daughter stayed with us. She had fallen asleep in Rachel's room near the foot of the bed, and all the dolls are up towards the pillows. And she said she had woken up several times throughout the night, and it probably happened about 3 times. She'd wake up and there was a certain pink doll that when she woke up, the doll had been moved up next to her. And she said she'd wake up and kind of put it up there, and then she'd wake up again and the doll would be right next to her. She was a little mixed on whether that was good or not, because it was interesting that, you know, Rachel was playing with her, but it was a little creepy that the doll was moving.
My name is Rich Ballard. I'm a psychology instructor. I've been teaching psychology for 20 years now at both the high school and college level, and developed an interest in parapsychology through my studies as a psychology instructor. I think there's a good correlation between, you know, studying the paranormal and what you might, you know, encounter when you're studying psychology, particularly, you know, the subfield of parapsychology. So there's definitely a nice correlation there. Correlation doesn't equal causation, though. So, you know, I'd like to think, you know, in my own experiences, you know, as an instructor, as someone who's been doing this for a long time, that I could remain skeptical when I do these types of, you know, investigations. That's very plausible, where people convince themselves that this place is haunted. I mean, you've been the Whispers. It's a very imposing old home. It's a beautiful old home, but it's imposing when you just pull out in front of it. The gargoyles are out there. I think some people, just by that alone, probably convince themselves that there's something going on in the house, some type of paranormal activity. It's eye-opening, and you know, as most people are when they're presented with things that seem to be very hard to explain at first, you know, you start questioning yourself. Was I tired? Was I open to suggestion? Is the house rigged with sound effects, or, you know, is it all a big scam where they got speakers hidden in the walls or the floors? I mean, you know, all those things. You know, once again, I'm trying to approach this, you know, in an empirical way. So, is this what we're dealing with? So that's my natural inclination to always go in that direction. But, you know, continually things have happened there. Like I said, I visited the house 5 times. Things continue to happen with different groups of people, whether it's close friends or other people who are adults that are just curious and want to investigate on their own, or whether I even take students. Like I said earlier, with the students, we seem to always stir things up in the house. The more you visit Whispers, I think the harder it becomes to remain that eternal skeptic, if you will.
One of the things people ask all the time is, why are ghosts with us? And how come some people are ghosts and some people are not? And I think that is as complicated a question as humanity is complicated. I think we are all how we are, and we all have different belief systems and different personalities. And I think that those belief systems and personalities last beyond our physical life. I don't think anything changes when we die, except that we lose our physical body. And we find a lot of these people still hanging around after death. And I think that's because their beliefs carry through, and they're maybe afraid to go on and see what's waiting for them. One of the things that I have found many times doing investigations of private houses is where a child has passed away or a baby has passed away, and they're still experiencing that child or that infant in the house, hearing the cry or hearing their voice or seeing them, even visitors to the house seeing a child in the house. And when you think children and infants, this is all they know. This is their whole universe. They don't even know about religion or the afterlife or anything like this. So this is a very small world that they live in. And I think a lot of times it's up to us to help them move on to the next place, because they don't have the experience to even be aware of that. I think it's extremely possible for us to see things that have happened and experience things that have happened many, many years after the fact. And I think that our ability to do that, I think, depends on the strength of the emotion that the person who suffered and died went through. And I think it also has a lot to do with the sudden nature of a lot of these deaths.
You all right? Okay, that's down. Glenn, you all right? Whoa, hey.
Let's get a light on.
No. You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay now.
What happened?
I couldn't breathe. It was like something was taking all my oxygen.
People have had life-changing experiences at places that are known to be haunted or not known to be haunted. And just because you don't happen to be there at the right time, even after several times, doesn't mean that there's not something inherently important about that place that's affected other people, which other people have experienced. Because these are all energies. Even if you don't believe in anything, it's still energy that's all around us. And it's there, it's interacting with us, and it's going to affect you.
Before, I didn't really think of things in necessarily a more spiritual standpoint, but after here, I always think there's something else that could be changing my life in a completely different way. Not everything is physical, and you can't always see everything.
It terrified me, but yeah, I'd do it again.
After going to Whispers Estates, I'd say I'm non-skeptic. After experiencing the stuff that happened, it's unexplainable.
Now, I started off as, I'm gonna say, a non-believer, and me and one of the other guys' goal was to debunk everything. I know there's something in there. I haven't figured it out yet, and I don't think anybody's going to figure it out.
The excitement brings me back here. It keeps me coming back here. The not knowing, the wondering what's going to happen next, that keeps me coming back here.
The house is what keeps bringing me back. I always tell everyone that the house is alive. It knows who it wants in this house and who it doesn't.
I could go to Whispers Estate and come back, and every encounter that I had could possibly be negative. I can go back the next day and it could be nothing but positivity. So you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. It's essentially a paranormal roulette.
Whispers, the more you visit, the harder it becomes to remain skeptical, and that's, ultimately that's my experience at Whispers. It never seems to disappoint when you visit. Something always seems to happen there.
We think that there's something inside the house, or that the house itself is alive. As far as myself knowing what that is, or even trying to articulate what that might be, I couldn't begin to explain it. I do believe that there's multiple paranormal presence in the house. I have been deathly afraid a number of those times, to the point where I have abandoned any hope of ever living in the house.